Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Savannah Chrisley reveals shocking name federal prosecutors called her parents. Former Chrisley Knows Best star Savannah Chrisley has revealed the shocking name federal prosecutors called her parents. They were sentenced to a combined 19 years behind bars, but were released in May 2025. So, what were Todd and Julie Chrisley referred to as? Keep reading for more details. Savannah Chrisley reveals name federal prosecutors called parents. This has been a long 2.5 years dealing with Todd and Julie Chrisley heading off to jail. It started long before that with their trial, and the family hid a lot of their sadness and fear. They kept going with Chrisley Knows Best, which showed a lighthearted side and invited a lot of laughter. Sadly, when they were sentenced, Savannah Chrisley took over for her parents. She became the guardian of her younger siblings, Grayson and Chloe, while fighting for Todd and Julie's freedom. In May 2025, they were pardoned by President Trump, but they maintained that their trial was never fair. Now Savannah, who has amassed a new fan base through her podcast, Unlocked, is opening up about what federal prosecutors called her parents. They had a shocking name, and it was the Trumps of the South. Although they may have felt this was an offensive name, Savannah and her family embrace President Trump and what he stands for. Therefore, they turned it into a positive as it did not hit as the prosecution had hoped. Yes, there were similarities between the Trumps and Chrisleys. Both are no strangers to reality television as President Trump helmed The Apprentice. Todd and Julie Chrisley showcased their lives on Chrisley Knows Best. Then Chase and Savannah Chrisley headed over to Growing Up Chrisley for a new spin on the reality series. Both families have been on trial and feel they have been treated unfairly, so yes, the moniker makes sense. At the end of the day, both families are attempting to do what they love and keep on going. A new series ahead. Savannah Chrisley will join her family in their new reality series, Back to Reality, which will air on Lifetime. It will start before Todd and Julie Chrisley are released from prison, and the harsh reality of what they went through. Furthermore, it will showcase the struggles their kids faced without their parents and how hard they fought. Finally, it will explore their release and the couple reuniting after 2.5 years away from each other. Fans of the family are more than thrilled for this to premiere. This should be an adventure, and a lot of praise will go to the current administration for helping free Todd and Julie. Savannah Chrisley has never been one to keep quiet, especially when it comes to defending her family. Over the past few years, she's transformed from reality TV star to fierce advocate, fighting not only for her parents' innocence, but for what she calls justice in a rigged system. But nothing could prepare fans for the bombshell she dropped during her most recent podcast episode of Unlocked, a revelation that left listeners stunned and social media ablaze. "I've been holding this in for too long," Savannah said, her voice quivering slightly as she leaned into the mic. "But I'm done playing nice. It's time people knew the kind of language federal prosecutors use to describe my parents behind closed doors. This isn't about justice. It's about humiliation. And I have the emails to prove it." According to Savannah, in a Truth of Discovery documents recently unsealed through a FOIA request, she came across an internal memo between prosecutors referring to Todd and Julie Chrisley as the Bonnie and Clyde of tax fraud. Her words hung heavy in the air, a mixture of disbelief and indignation brewing among her followers. "That's what they called my parents," she repeated slowly, tears forming in her eyes. "Bonnie and Clyde. Like they were some kind of criminals on the run, robbing banks with guns drawn. My dad isn't a gangster. My mom isn't some outlaw. They're people. They're my parents. And they're sitting in prison while this kind of language is being thrown around like it's funny." The courtroom had already been a battlefield. From questionable evidence to the high-profile nature of the Chrisley's celebrity, their trial often felt like a spectacle rather than a fair hearing. But Savannah's latest revelation suggested a more insidious undercurrent, a game of optics and ego, where prosecutors treated the case like a Netflix drama rather than real life. On the podcast, she shared the excerpt from the email chain. One-line read. Let's make sure the Bonnie and Clyde of Atlanta get their moment in the spotlight. Then lock the cell. Savannah paused. That's not
Almost
justice.
instantly,
That's
clips
clips from the episode went viral. Fans rallied behind her. Others, still skeptical of the Chrisley's innocence, were nonetheless disturbed by the flippant attitude displayed in what was supposed to be an impartial prosecution. It makes you wonder, one Twitter user wrote, if they're using language like this behind the scenes, what else are they doing? Savannah went on to explain how the dehumanization of her parents was part of a larger issue in the justice system, especially in high-profile cases involving celebrities. People think that because we were on TV, we deserve this. That somehow, being famous means you should expect to be dragged through the mud. But justice isn't supposed to be about revenge. It's supposed to be about truth. And calling my parents Bonnie and Clyde shows they were never looking for truth. They were writing a narrative. The episode also featured a surprise guest, legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Rachel Dempsey, who now works in wrongful conviction advocacy. Even she was taken aback by the nickname. I've been in the system a long time, Dempsey said. I've seen prosecutors refer to defendants in shorthand, especially when emotions run high. But using a label like Bonnie and Clyde to describe someone on trial crosses a professional line. It indicates a bias that can color every decision, from what evidence is emphasized to how lenient or harsh his sentencing recommendation becomes. Dempsey's appearance lent gravity to Savannah's claims. It wasn't just a daughter defending her parents anymore. It was an indictment of a justice system that, in some cases, seemed more interested in headlines than truth. Savannah's next move? She plans to file a formal complaint with the Department of Justice's Office of Professional Responsibility. I don't expect miracles, she admitted, but I do expect accountability. Someone has to say, this isn't okay. In the days following the episode, #JusticeForTheChrisleys began trending again, a hashtag that had faded since their initial sentencing. Fans reignited calls for a new trial, a review of prosecutorial conduct, and the release of more behind-the-scenes communications. Savannah's bravery in exposing the nickname seemed to reawaken a movement, one fueled not just by fandom, but by growing concern over fairness. For Savannah, though, this wasn't about going viral. It's about my dad, who calls me every night and tells me to stay strong. It's about my mom, who prays with me over the phone and tells me God's plan is bigger than this courtroom. And it's about the millions of families who've watched their loved ones be reduced to punchlines in a system that doesn't always see the human side. The episode ended not with anger, but with a quiet vow. I will not stop until every truth is known, Savannah said. Because if they can call my parents Bonnie and Clyde today, they can call anyone that tomorrow. And that's not a world I want to live in. As the credits rolled, her words lingered. Not just as a daughter's plea, but as a challenge to a system that may have gone too far in pursuit of a conviction.